Good morning everyone. Welcome to the Italian Pavilion. On behalf of the entire Italian Pavilion, the entire world comes to Dubai, here at the core of the World Exposition. As you know, the first mega event after the pandemic, the first in terms of number that decides to participate at this exposition. All united, I'm proudly to be here with the General Commissioner with the idea to represent connecting minds, creating the future. In our whole amphitheater, we decide to represent this message every single day. I'm Lorenzo Micheli, the Education Program Officer of the Italian Pavilion, and it's my honor today to welcome you to the Young20 opening ceremony. It's a 3-day international youth conference and workshop, and especially is a simulation, the first simulation on the topics of the G20 summits, the official agenda under the Italian presidency of G20. It's promoted by the Italian Pavilion and the Italian Ministry of Education as part of the outstanding Expo School and University program. In the run-up of the Tolerance and Inclusivity Week and the Golden Jubilee of the United Arab Emirates, we have invited international students across UAE, across Italy, and the world to join together on the opportunities and way to work on the potential of international cooperation, highlight the importance of diplomacy, and especially on global awareness. And there is no better place, actually, to do so than the Italian Pavilion. Considering, as you can see, the Italian 2020 presidency of G20 that just now came to an end with the G20 Rome Leaders Declaration. But as shown, and you already had the opportunity to visit the pavilion, the journey of learning never ends, and the entire pavilion, as you know, is shaped around the idea of discovery and exploration without limit, without any national borders. And Young20 is an extraordinary opportunity, actually, for youngsters like you to start this journey and think out of the box. This privilege actually is not limited to the people that are present in this room. You are not alone. Starting from October 1st, as our General Commission can confirm, we have reached more than 2 million viewers on Facebook and YouTube. We had more than 200,000 interactions through the social media. And right now, at this moment, we are connected live, and we are watched by other schools, other universities around Italy. We are live on streaming on the YouTube and Facebook page of Italy Expo 2020. And that's why I would say, and I would greet all students, teachers, principals here with us today, and also all those who are watching us from home. And I give you, and I give them, a first round of applause to be here. Thank you. And now, before passing the voice to the General Commissioner, Paolo Glisenti, I know what should we expect from today. I know that is the question. This is the question. And it would be nice to know with each other better and better. So I know that you have your phone, actually. And I invite you to take your phone out, because just in a few seconds, you will see a screen on the back. You will see a code. And the code, I think, is quite clear at the moment. I think that also use this microphone. You see the code 47618913, and I would like to ask you just to write your name and to know the geography of all names represented at this Young20 global simulation. Let's start to see the geography of our names. Just a few seconds to full these screens and to see all diversity represented at this stage. Luca, Marianne, Monica, Giada, Sara, Abdullah, Kartik, Irene. Please continue to represent your names, and then we can move on. Because from our names, we can pass, where are we from? just share your country. Let's represent all nationalities represented actually here at the Italian pavilion. All pavilion represented, as is the first Expo to represent 192 countries. And this is always spectacular to see. The city that you call home, from nationalities, from countries, to the place that you feel home. Could be a village, a city, a town, what you feel, your home. And you see the city of Dubai, of course, which represents the core, where we are now at the moment, but other diversity in terms of geography represented here. And now, let's move to your interest, our interest. Let's see, what is your favorite subject to study or to teach? It doesn't matter if you are students or are teachers. Please try to share the basic interest we are working on, and you will be on the table for this G20 simulation. Climate, politics, music, history, math, language, again, politics and paintings. And then let's come to Expo 2020 Dubai. Is this your first experience visiting our World Exposition? For how many is the real first time here at Expo, and of course at the Italian pavilion? You see that it's yes, the first time. From the first time to the language that we can represent here, and we of course we need language at this G20 simulation work. How many languages do you know? How many languages are represented here at this stage? It's quite impressive to see that 3 languages are represented. How many social networks are you active on? And I know it's a recommendation to use your social network at this G20 simulation. How many social networks are you active on? And probably you will use at this stage, at this simulation. And the range is quite different. Is this your first time participating in a formal student simulation? Have you already been part of a simulation, a student simulation? Yes, no? Several of you have already joined a simulation, probably for different assembly. And then we can move. I know that all players are ready, because now is the last quiz. Before starting, we can start. I ask the directing to push again the last. What are the keywords chosen by the Italian presidency for the G20 summit? You can choose people, peace, prosperity, people, planet, prosperity, people, planet, politics. You have just 5 seconds left to choose the correct answer. Let's see the 3 keywords of the Italian presidency for G20 summit. The correct answer is the people, planet, and prosperity. And with this connection in mind, with this answer in mind, I'm really happy, I'm really honored to leave the floor to the General Commissioner of the Italian Pavilion, Paolo Glisenti.
Good morning. Thank you for coming to everybody here, and everybody is connected to this meeting, to this seminar from around Italy and the rest of the world. It's really an important event, this one. We celebrating, as you know, the Tolerance Week, as everybody else in Expo. Yesterday, we had here in this room, where you sit now, the religious leaders of 75% of the world population. We had religious leaders from all over the world declaring peace, declaring tolerance. And I think it was a great historic moment for us. And it's very important that you immediately follow up on this, because yesterday few things came out from the discussion, the speeches, the interviews with the media that I think are of interest to you and to your simulation in the next couple of days, next 3 days. First, the issue of tolerance. Everybody here, all the leaders from all the religions around the world came here to say that tolerance is not a passive acceptance of the other. It's not generosity. It's not, be kind, behavior, kindness, and so forth. Tolerance is an active approach and pertains strictly to social growth, the diminishing of social inequalities, the increase of employment opportunities for women first and then for men. So the meaning that came out, the first message that came out is we should talk about tolerance in a very proactive way and manner. Tolerance is new economies, innovation, sustainability, growth, equality, and so forth. It's not the acceptance of the poor. It's the way to help the poor coming to the growth cycle. It's not an acceptance of students that cannot attend schools in many, many countries that were represented here yesterday. It's the way to get them in the teaching process. This was the first message. The second message was very important, and it's a consequence of what we are saying, what I'm trying to explain to you, is that tolerance is a global issue. And it cannot be dealt but on a global basis. Yesterday, the Minister of Tolerance here launched the Global Tolerance Alliance, which was a very important beginning of a process leading to a chart, a code, to commitments that will be taken by countries, by institutions, by governments, by religious leaders. Just one thing I remember that struck me, during the COVID pandemic, 65% of the world population took advice on whether to take vaccination, PCRs, wear masks from religious communities and not from governments. That struck me a lot, meaning what the trustworthy relationship there is nowadays with the religious communities in terms of governing our life, instead of relying only on government and traditional politics and traditional democratic mechanism. Okay, bracket close. So the issue was tolerance requires a multilateral global approach, multilateral global negotiations. Your simulation will be a global simulation, will be based on the global approach to tolerance. This was the second message that comes out. Clearly, there is no national way, there is no individualistic way to tolerance, only a global way. Third message that came out is the students, education is the anchor of tolerance. We cannot even see the horizon of our life, our world, our planet, without including tolerance as an anchor of education processes around the globe. It has to start from there immediately. It has to go into the school, teaching courses, universities, and so forth. The result, the success of what we will do in terms of tolerance, the way I tried to describe you before, the proactive planning, programming way of approaching tolerance, depends on students' actions, understanding, awareness, sharing of values of these values. So education is a must, is the first ingredient of tolerance. That's why your simulation, being global, being the center of the tolerance scheme and plans, is so important and so key to the success of what we're discussing this week in Expo. Finally, there was another point which I want to share with you, is that the tolerance has one major goal nowadays: employment and social responsibility and social equality. There is no other issue at stake. Employment and social responsibility. So my suggestion is, do your simulations, do your planning negotiations on the basis of these principles, which yesterday were set here in clear manner by all the religious leaders coming from all over the world. This is my suggestion, just to share with you what started to be the discussion here. Employment and social responsibility. I want to thank the Italian Ministry of Education, Minister Bianchi, who will be here next month with us, and Simona, who is a Director General of the Simona Montesacchio, the Ministry, who has been helping us a lot in this with Lorenzo. The simulation, the negotiation is part of the mechanism. It's not a game. You know why? That's my thinking. Because you are not going to be the beneficiaries of policy-making actions, initiatives taken on tolerance, quote-unquote tolerance, to give the broader interpretation of tolerance. You will be the main actors. You're going to be the policy makers of the future. You're going to be the ones that decide what has to be done in terms of favoring and promoting tolerance the way we are describing today. So your role is not, to do a challenge, a playing field challenge, is to set the lines for policy making of the future. You're going to be the actors of this policy making approach. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that the Italian Pavilion is hosting not only the major global event that we had yesterday in this room, but also the Young20 group simulations. There is a corridor, a diplomatic corridor. It's not a case that Italy is hosting this simulation. We had an interfaith, interreligious dialogue event, G20 event in Italy, where the UAE Minister of Tolerance Ministry sent very high representatives. So there is a diplomatic corridor that starts from Italy in the last few months, comes here through the Expo, and looks at the future with the global alliance that is being launched here. So thank you very much, and please let's take, all of us, your work, your commitment very, very seriously. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, the General Commissioner Paolo Glisenti. Italy Expo is really focused to involve students also visiting this pavilion, representing different schools, cities, regions across the UAE. All this is in line with the great effort of the Expo School Program. And so I'm pleased to leave the floor to the director of the Expo School Program, Mariam Almeri.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. I actually see a couple of familiar faces, which makes me very happy. It's truly an honor to witness and be a part of this event, particularly because it's very connected to what we work on at the Expo School Program. And we are very committed to fulfilling and inspiring the young learners of today to become the leaders of tomorrow. And what better way to do that than to initiate them into the art of negotiation, of cultural communication and mutual understanding through the Young20. It's an international platform where students from different backgrounds and different cultures get to come together to meet and discuss some of the most important and interconnected pillars of our existence, which are people, planet, and prosperity. From the earliest days of Expo 2020, young learners across the UAE have always been at the heart of the Expo and this historic event. Our aim has always been to ensure that they take an active part as speakers, performers, and innovators. Whether it's a school journey, a performance, an exhibit, or a forum, the educational value that's embedded into each one of these events is very valuable to the school communities, and it helps us share ideas, concerns, and solutions for a better and brighter future. Thank you again for creating such opportunities and joining us today to focus to empower the values of choice and voices of tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for your words, thanks to the Expo School Program. It is very clear that we are in front of a really special project that has a long history, because Young20 has already had previous edition before this one. I would like to show you just in the back some videos, some highlights about the first edition of Young20 in Rome. We were at the core of the center of Rome, and we had the first absolutely edition of G20. It was the first national one. And then the year later, we have been another place, another experience. We were in India, New Delhi, for the G20 negotiation work in 2019, before, as you know, the COVID-19 disruption that interrupted the edition of Young20. And now we are finally here to present the global edition of Young20, and I'm pleased to present all details, challenges, procedures, and I'm pleased, and I'm more than pleased, that to present all the information about the experience, about the simulation, are the two directors of the Young20, two mentors from the Italian pavilion, Thea Oxa and Khadija Taufik. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Honorable guests, students, teachers, principals. It is always a great honor for me to find myself in a room with so many young minds and students, because you are the living proof that youngsters do really care about their future, and they often confront, debate, and sometimes clash in order to create a strong sense of global awareness. Me, with my colleagues Khadija Taufik, Francesco Ballarin, Emilio Siciliano, Silvia Agostini, and Raffaele Molino, will be your chairs. That means your committee directors that will follow you in these 3 days, step by step. Funny enough, we have been delegates just like you when we were 17, 16, 18, sitting on those chairs with our placards on our hands, nervous but excited at the same time. In these days, you will be delegates. That means that you need to truthfully represent your country with its positions and also its demands. You will be the delegates of the G20 summit, so the international forum that gathers around the world's major economies. And you will be called upon to find solutions on the challenges of tomorrow and also to today's. But how will we work? Well, of course, the workflow will be divided in 4 main stages. The first one being the speakers list. The speakers list that you will come to the podium, and you will state the position paper of your country. So your country position on a specific topic. What has your country done in the past? What will we do in the future? So his general position on that specific theme. Then we will have an alternation of the moderated and unmoderated caucus. The moderated caucus is the more formal part of the debate. You will deliver a brief speech on very specific issues, and you will be granted the right to speak, so the floor, by the chairs. Finally, we will also have the unmoderated caucus, which is the most informal part of the debate. You are very free to move around the room, create collaborations, and start absolutely working on the basis of the solution that you will find. And the solutions that you will find, you will put them on the joint declaration, the declaration of the G20 summit, with all your ideas of feasible solutions that you will find in these 3 days. Finally, a question that might come to your mind is, but what we'll be discussing about in these days? And to answer this question, I would like to leave the floor to my friend and colleague, Khadija Taufik. Thank you.
Thank you, Thea, for this fantastic introduction. Before I give you further information on the topics that you will be discussing, I'd like to explain to you the process and the kind of the reasons that we picked that led us to this choice. So it's needless to say that the pandemic has had a huge impact on our lives in many different sectors, and currently we find ourselves in a period in which we can already look at the aftermath and the long-term effects that the pandemic will have in our lives. And the recovery from a shock of such importance was the premise of the G20 Rome Leaders Declaration, which was our starting point. And not only did they make it a priority to address the adverse consequences of the pandemic, but it was just as important to keep the conversation about groups of people who were disproportionately affected by the pandemic. And these groups of people who were impacted negatively have been defined as vulnerable groups. What we have done is we've focused on the fact that the shocks of some labor markets are bound to persist throughout time, and some sectors will grow while others will shrink. And it is pivotal for policymakers to be able to regulate the future of the labor market through, for example, job retention policies, through reallocation measures, through accessible and inclusive protection measures, and above all, in education and training. So within the category of these two groups, we will ask you to focus on two particular ones, which are women and youth. And the first category is especially close to us because young people, well, first of all, because we are youngsters ourselves, but young people have been impacted far more than adults. And just to give you some numbers, compared to the 3.7% of people that lost, adult people that lost their jobs, youth lost their jobs by 8.7% and 11% in the G20 countries. So the issue here is that loss of employment in youth led to an increase in inactivity that is not counterbalanced by a return to education. So the fundamental thing here is to prevent this short-term exit into becoming a multi-generational and long-term crisis. So that's the first group, and then the second group that we're going to be talking about is women. And there are some facts that you can see behind me, the fact that women are paid between 5% to up to 40% less than men, twice as likely to not have paid jobs. They spend more hours doing unpaid work and have a major role in domestic responsibilities. And last of all, they hold up to 15 to 45% of managerial jobs. So the disproportionate effect on women are in terms of, first of all, the pandemic has slowed down significantly the process towards gender equality, almost re-traditionalizing gender roles. So what we ask you to do is focus on, first of all, the unpaid workers and the overrepresentation of women in frontline workers in the pandemic who are more at risk. So what led to this and what policies are important for that to be prevented? So improve work and family balance, have transparency in reporting, and reduce the gender payback. We ask you to do this especially because that way women can thrive and succeed in their careers without having to think about the infinite hurdles that are connected to their gender. That said, I'd like to ask there for the mic because I'd like to leave the floor to the real protagonists of this simulation. They are, first of all, the countries that we represent, but not only the delegates that will be representing those countries. And so I'd like to call on stage the delegations of Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Australia onto stage. Please join me. France, China, Germany, Italy, Japan, India, United Kingdom, the USA, Mexico, Korea, Russia, Indonesia, the European Union, and South Africa and Saudi Arabia. From Rome to Dubai, here joining us, this is the real axe that joins us together. Thank you, delegates, for being here. A fantastic moment of representation and diversity between our countries. Young people that come together to solve problems that are really discussed at a global level. Today, here in the amphitheatro, we will be doing the youth part of this policy making. Hold up your flags, especially the ones on the back so we can see you. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You can return to your seats. Thank you again to everyone. I wish you all a good work, and we will see you shortly in the working sessions. Off to you, Lorenzo.
Thank you, Khadija. Thank you, Thea. Thanks to all the delegates from the 20 countries of G20. And now, to conclude this ceremony, let me briefly introduce and greet all the schools joining us today on the way from Italy and also the ones from UAE, and would like to start to present all high school represented here at the G20 simulation. I would like to start from Liceo Virgilio Mantova, Lombardy. Please stand up, stand up. Liwa International School. Convitto Nazionale Paolo Diacono Cividale del Friuli, Friuli Venezia Giulia. James Al Barsha National School. Itet Salvemini Molfetta, Puglia. The the Oxford School in Dubai. Liceo Peano Pellico, Cuneo, Piemonte. Jess Arabian Ranks. Liceo Blaise Pascal Pomezia, Rome. Liceo Tacito Terni, Umbria. James Walls Academy. Liceo Manfredi Fanti, Carpi, Modena. James Our Own English High School, Sharjah. Istituto Duni Levi, Matera, Basilicata. I would like also again to say thanks to all schools. Our gratitude, as mentioned by our General Commissioners, goes out to the Italian Ministry of Education, the General Office for Educational Digital Innovation, Director Simona Montesarchio and Mr. Andrea Bollini, the principal of the organizational leading school of this workshop, Alberta Pettoello, and her team, including Professor Monica Dami. That was the Convitto Paolo Diacono Cividale del Friuli, and of course the big family of the Expo School Program. Thank you, Marianne. So we are just at the beginning of these incredible journeys. So ladies and gentlemen, this is all from me, from the team Italy Expo 2020, all from the Italian pavilion for now. Thank you for being today for this opening ceremony. We will start really soon the working session just in a few minutes. But again, as we said, Viva Young20. Thank you so much.
The room now. Delegates, I ask you to stay because we will be revising the rules of procedures. My colleague Thea will explain them to you again. Thank you for being here to all teachers, principals, and the Expo School Program. Thank you. Delegates, I'd like to ask you to move forward and maybe occupy the first rows as